In the 8th year of their marriage, Qin Shichuan's mistress, whom he had kept outside, became pregnant. He brought her home and specifically asked Su Wanua to take care of her during her pregnancy. The pregnant woman is emotionally unstable. You need to put away your spoiled rich girl temper from now on and prioritize XN in everything. Her palate is delicate, so avoid spicy and stimulating foods, while ensuring she gets adequate nutrition. Su Wanua's hands were already clenched into fists, staring at the man before her in disbelief. Are you crazy? Asking your legitimate wife to take care of your pregnant mistress. Qin Shichuan, are you so reckless that you're not afraid I'll really reach my limit and leave you? His actions were clearly a public humiliation to her. But Qin Shichuan merely raised an eyebrow, his tone as cold as ever. If you want to leave, then leave. It's perfect if you leave and give your room to Shinshin. That bedroom gets plenty of sunshine. Su Wanua had heard similar words from Qin Shichuan countless times. He was certain that Su Wanua couldn't leave him. The two had been married for 8 years and their business ties alone were complex and intertwined. Furthermore, Su Wanua had been deeply in love with him until now, so it wouldn't be easy to let go. But Su Wanua had no intention of tolerating it this time. Alright, I'll do as you wish. She wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes, left these words and turned to go back to her room. After tidying up her suitcase with practiced efficiency, Su Wanua took out the items she had cherished from her closet one by one. An emerald bracelet. This was a gift from Qin Shichuan in their first year of marriage. However, the very next day after receiving it, she saw scandalous news in the newspaper about Qin Shichuan entering a hotel with a young woman. A top-of-the-line crocodile leather handbag. That year she had her baby. This was a gift that Qin Shichuan had someone bring from overseas, but the next day he was absent from her prenatal checkup for no reason, causing her to be frightened by stray dogs by the roadside and lose her unborn child. The celestial maiden pearl necklace. It was on that day that Su Wanua discovered Qin Shichuan's affair with Du Shinshin in his office. While she was furious, Qin Shichuan slapped her. Later, he sent people to deliver this necklace in an attempt to gloss over the matter. Diamond ring. This was a year ago when Qin Shichuan took Du Shinshin to Australia for a trip. He bought a 10-carat diamond ring from a collector, and upon returning to China, casually handed the complimentary diamond ring that came with the collector's purchase to Su Wanua. The gifts gradually became less valuable, and Su Wanua's heart grew indifferent in the process. In the end, she threw all these gifts into the trash can and along with them she no longer wanted Qin Shichuan. Before leaving the room, Su Wanua paused and dialed a number. Do you still mean what you said last time about marrying me after my divorce? A crisp sound came from the other end of the phone, like a glass being dropped, followed by the man's eager and affirmative reply. Yes, it counts. It counts anytime, it counts forever. Okay. Su Wanua nodded, took a deep breath and walked out of the room. Unexpectedly, as soon as she reached the living room downstairs, Qin Shichuan stood in front of her, blocking her path firmly. Oh. You packed up quite quickly. Qin Shichuan snatched Su Wanua's suitcase and casually pushed it into a guest room. Considering how quickly you cleared out the room for Shinshin, I can assume you were joking when you said you wanted to leave. For the days to come, you will stay at home and take good care of the pregnant woman for me. Don't cause trouble for no reason and annoy me. This time Su Wanua did not go along with the excuse he offered. Instead she took back her suitcase and said word by word with determination, No need. I can leave right now. I wish you both an early birth of a precious child and 100 years of happy marriage. Upon hearing this, the veins on Qin Shichuan's forehead twitched twice. But after half a second he raised an eyebrow, stepped aside and said playfully, Fine, then leave. I hope you won't come back crying and begging me in 3 days. And another thing, as Su Wanua turned, he grabbed her wrist and glanced at the suitcase. Open the suitcase and let me see. Don't take anything you shouldn't. To Su Wanua these words were blatant humiliation. But she merely looked calm and opened the suitcase with a raise of her hand. Hurry up and look and let me leave immediately after you're done. Du Shinshin walked over at some point and voluntarily asked to inspect Su Wanua's suitcase. Su Wanua's belongings were simple, consisting only of personal identification and clothing. However, Du Shinshin still found a peace charm inside. She looked it up and down, then said to Qin Shichuan with a smile, Brother Shichuan, this peace charm is so beautiful, I want it. Su Wanua's expression immediately turned stern and she sharply refused. No, I can't give this to you. Qin Shituan looked at her without blinking and said, since Shinshin likes it, give it to her. It's just a peace charm, how much does it cost? I'll buy it. Su Wanua, however, firmly refused. These are relics left to me by my parents and I will not give them to anyone. Su Wanua was frail from childhood. Her parents doted on her and went to Mount Fo Luo to kneel 399 steps to obtain this peace charm for her. This is also the only memento her parents left her after their passing. Hearing Su Wanua mention her deceased parents, Qin Shituan was momentarily choked up and his sarcastic smile faded. But upon seeing Du Shinshin's wronged expression, he quickly suppressed the flicker of pity that had just surfaced. Then you can lend it to Shinshin to play with for a couple of days. She's pregnant, you should indulge her. Before Qin Shituan could finish speaking, Du Shinshin reached out and snatched the peace charm for herself. Du Shinshin's nails were long and during the struggle she tore the peace charm, ripping it in half. And she also fell to the ground with a plop due to inertia. Shinshin. Qin Shituan quickly rushed forward, pushed Su Wanua aside, and then very carefully helped Du Shinshin up. Su Wanua lost her balance, her head hitting the corner of the table and bleeding, the pain making her head buzz. But this pain was far less than 1/10,000th of the pain deep in her heart. She stared blankly at the half-remaining peace charm in her hand, her heart feeling as if it were being fiercely clutched by something. Qin Shituan's cold voice, devoid of any emotion, rang out, Su Wanua. How dare you hurt Shinshin? Apologize to her quickly. Su Wanua propped herself up, her desolate gaze sweeping over Qin Shituan's face, a face she had traced with her eyes countless times. The last shred of her affection for Qin Shituan vanished from her heart. She simply closed her eyes, her voice struggling to escape her throat. If I apologize, can I leave? In their 8 years of marriage, Qin Shituan was never without other women, but Du Shinshin was the one who stayed by his side the longest. Even Su Wanua was forced to apologize to Du Shinshin on more than one occasion for unintentionally offending her. In the past, she was willing to apologize because she hoped Qin Shituan would acknowledge her as sensible and be willing to turn back and return to the family. But now she apologized, only hoping to leave Qin Shituan as soon as possible. Qin Shituan remained silent, quietly waiting for the opinion of the woman in his arms. Du Shinshin bit her lower lip, a hint of hesitation on her face. Brother Shituan, but I really like that peace charm. Qin Shituan immediately understood Du Shinshin's meaning, but before he could even make a request, Su Wanua raised her hand to interrupt him. Su Wanua's fingernails dug fiercely into her palm. She took a deep breath and said in a low voice, Understood. I will personally go to Mount Futuo and ask for an identical peace charm for her. Now may I leave? Listening to Su Wanua's repeated words about leaving, Qin Shituan couldn't help but frown. At this moment, Du Shinshin cried out in pain, clutching her calf. Ah, I've scraped my calf. Qin Shituan glanced at her wound and immediately glared at Su Wanua. Don't rush off, you haven't settled your tab yet. As he spoke, he raised his hand and ordered his bodyguards to grab Su Wanua. Su Wanua was in a panic. Qin Shituan, what are you doing? Let go of me. Qin Shituan picked up Du Shinshin horizontally without a word, and gestured with his eyes for the bodyguard to follow Su Wanua. In the hospital, the man dragged Su Wanua into the operating room without explanation. Xian's calf has a skin abrasion, and you need to perform a skin graft for her now. Su Wanua trembled violently, her eyes widening in terror. A tiny scratch like hers won't even leave a scar, and you want me to perform a skin graft on her? The doctor wiped a cold sweat from his brow and stepped forward to dissuade him. Mr. Qin, Madam has been frail since childhood and she is currently bleeding from her head. A skin graft surgery is really not advisable. Qin Shituan showed hesitation, but remembering Du Shinshin and the child in her womb, he steeled his heart. He raised his hand and touched Su Wanua's cheek, his tone softening unusually. If you hadn't caused Shinshin to get hurt, none of this would have happened. Just bear with it, you'll be fine soon. Su Wanua knew she could no longer change the outcome. She gave a wry smile and closed her eyes. Hurry up and take it. After finishing, she had to leave as someone was waiting for her on the other side of the ocean. A thick needle injected anesthetic into Su Wanua's body. Her consciousness blurred, but she could still feel the cold knife cutting through her forearm, peeling away her flesh. Shinshin, who was watching the surgery with them, hid her head in Qin Shichuan's arms and said coquettishly, "Brother Shichuan, Su Wanua's skin is so scary it's bloody. I don't want it anymore." As soon as she said this, even the chief surgeon couldn't help but speak. "This piece of skin has already been removed. You're saying you don't want it now? Isn't this toying with madam?" Qin Shichuan's sharp eyes swept over the doctor. Exen is the patient now, and her opinion is the most important." The doctor immediately dared not speak. After a long pause, he shrunk his head and hesitantly asked, "Then, President Qin, what about this piece of skin?" Qin Shichuan looked at Su Wanua's bloody arm and the piece of skin that had just been removed. He sighed and said in a deep voice, "Hurry up and bandage madam's arm. As for the skin, throw it away." The next day, Su Wanua slowly woke up from the anesthesia. The moment she opened her eyes, she saw a tall figure standing by the hospital bed. Qin Shichuan asked softly, "Are you awake? Does your wound still hurt?" Su Wanua had heard everything that happened on the operating table. Now, facing Qin Shichuan's hypocritical concern, she couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. "What? Is my skin not enough for you? Do you want to take it a second time? Oh, I almost forgot, you didn't use that piece of skin at all. And by now Shinshin's wound has probably already healed." Qin Shichuan was a little stunned. Although Su Wanua wasn't always gentle with him, he had rarely seen her look so utterly sarcastic. When did she become so sharp-tongued? Qin Shichuan frowned slightly. "I just transferred 10 million to your phone as payment for you agreeing to the skin graft yesterday." Su Wanua picked up her phone and checked. Indeed, 10 million had been deposited. At the same time, she received several text messages on her phone, asking when she would leave and which day's flight she had booked. Afraid that Qin Shichuan would notice something unusual, she quickly turned off the screen. "Okay, then I'll accept this 10 million. Su Wanua naturally accepted the money. Her financial dealings with him over the years had always been honest. Although the marriage was initially arranged, in reality, the Su family was in decline and had to rely on the Qin family for support. Therefore, after marriage, the Su family's company was managed by Qin Shichuan. When Su Wanua needed money, she would ask Qin Shichuan for it, which was a way for her to get back some of the company's dividends. Now that she was leaving, it was good for her to have some money on hand. Seeing that she obediently accepted the money, Qin Shichuan turned and left the ward. Su Wanua sat alone for a while, feeling thirsty and had to get out of bed herself to fetch some hot water. She happened to pass by a ward and saw two familiar figures through the window. This was a VIP room that Qin Shichuan had specially arranged for Shinshin. At this moment, Shinshin was hugging Qin Shichuan's neck, pressing her red lips towards his mouth. And Qin Shichuan was clearly trying his best to restrain himself. "No, Shinshin, you're still pregnant, this is too dangerous." Shinshin blew into his ear. "It's okay, I want it. You can be gentle later." As she spoke, she kissed Qin Shichuan's lips and Qin Shichuan half-heartedly accepted, showing no signs of resistance. This scene made Su Wanua feel a wave of nausea. She could no longer hold back, covering her mouth and rushing to the toilet to retch. After an unknown amount of time spent vomiting, she emerged from the toilet in a daze. Unexpectedly, he ran right into Qin Shichuan, whose face was grim. "Were you eavesdropping at our door just now?" Su Wanua frowned slightly and was about to deny it when she heard Qin Shichuan say, "Stop pretending. Shinshin saw the thermos you left at the door, and she was so scared that she can't sleep well now. Since you still have the leisure to eavesdrop, it seems your injuries have mostly healed. Then fulfill your promise and go get a peace charm for Shinshin." Saying this, he grabbed Su Wanua and strode out of the hospital. Qin Shichuan had already arranged for a car to wait downstairs at the hospital, complete with 2 bodyguards to ensure Su Wanua completed her task. Thus, Su Wanua was forced to go to Mount Fulua and, under the escort of the bodyguards, knelt for all 399 steps. By the time Su Wanua received the peace talisman, she was already dizzy and disoriented. She felt a sticky liquid flowing between her legs, and then her vision went black and she completely fainted. When she opened her eyes again, Su Wanua smelled the scent of disinfectant in the air. She had been sent to the hospital again. She propped herself up and sat up. Her knees throbbed with a burning pain, injuries from being scraped while kneeling on the steps. but she felt a sense of relief. The peace charm must have reached Du Shinshin's hands. Now she could finally leave, right? Just as Su Wanue picked up her phone to book a flight, the hospital room door opened. Qin Shichuan walked in, his steps somewhat hurried, and his face held an expression Su Wanue couldn't decipher. He spoke in a deep voice, "Wanue, you're pregnant." What? The words struck Su Wanue like a thunderclap, leaving her mind blank for a moment. After she realized, she snatched the slip from Qin Shichuan's hand. It showed 6 weeks of pregnancy. 6 weeks ago they had indeed. Qin Shichuan's voice sounded from above her head, with a hint of imperceptible caution. "I didn't expect you to be pregnant. The doctor said you have signs of threatened miscarriage due to the skin grafting and kneeling on the steps, and you've also had spotting. But don't worry, the baby is safe." But Su Wanue's expression was grim. "But what?" Qin Shichuan hesitated for a moment, then decided to tell her. "But Shinshin is pregnant now, and her emotions will be quite volatile. I can allow you to have this child, but you cannot tell her about it until Shinshin's pregnancy is stable." She was pregnant, yet still kept it from her lover outside, lest his emotions be stirred. Su Wanue found it utterly absurd, followed by a wave of sorrow. Yes, in Qin Shichuan's heart she had never been able to compare to Du Shinshin, and her child was likely the same. The words she wanted to retort with were already at her lips, but she chose to swallow them back. But in her heart she silently made a decision and looked up to ask Qin Shichuan, "I understand. Are there any other requirements?" Qin Shichuan thought for a moment, then said earnestly, "This child's gestation period is shorter than Xn Xian's child's. In the future, I also hope you won't deliver prematurely. My first child can only be mine and Xn Xian's." Su Wanue couldn't help but laugh, then reached out and touched her lower abdomen, nodding faintly. "Don't worry, I definitely won't get ahead of you." There was no possibility of that anymore. Qin Shichuan was then satisfied and took out the thermos from behind him. "You haven't eaten anything since you fainted. I sent someone to bring some congee, please have some." Su Wanue calmly took the thermos, but Qin Shichuan showed no intention of leaving. He even picked up a spoon, wanting to feed her the congee. "No need, I don't have an appetite right now." Su Wanue turned her head away, and after a long while she heard Qin Shichuan sigh. "All right, you can rest and recuperate in the hospital. If you have any needs, just tell my assistant." After 8 years of marriage, Su Wanue immediately understood the unspoken meaning in his words. That was, don't disturb him easily. He still had to accompany Du Shinshin and be a qualified expectant father. I understand." Not long after Qin Shichuan left, Su Wanue's phone rang. It was an overseas number with the contact name Lu Shuyan. Yeah, you haven't replied to my messages since our last call. Are you not planning to come? Or did you encounter some difficulties and couldn't make it on time? Can I help? You can tell me directly whatever your plans are. No matter what the answer is, I can accept it." Lu Shuyan's cautious tone softened Su Wanue's heart a little. She replied softly, "Don't worry, I haven't gone back on my word, I was just delayed by some things. As for the itinerary, give me a few more days. I'll come find you once I've finished things here." Lu Shuyan still asked many more questions, clearly not at ease. Only after Su Wanue helplessly assured him repeatedly that she would indeed go to him soon did he reluctantly hang up the phone. Next, Su Wanue put away her phone, rolled out of bed, and knocked on the door of the obstetrics doctor's office. "Doctor, I want to schedule an abortion." Su Wanue was not wearing makeup. Although her face looked a little haggard without makeup, it still appeared youthful. The doctor, assuming this was another misguided young girl coming for an abortion, calmly took out a form and began the routine questioning. "The child's father also needs to come and sign." Su Wanue thought for a moment and said with a sincere expression, "The child's father passed away unexpectedly. I can sign by myself." Thus, Su Wanue successfully scheduled her abortion surgery for that afternoon. The moment the cold instrument entered her body, she gritted her teeth, her heart filled only with relief. In the days following her miscarriage, Qin Shichuan did not visit her in the hospital even once. Instead, Su Wanue inevitably saw Qin Shichuan's presence on her social media feed. All of it was posted by Du Shinshin. Speaking of which, Du Shinshin was Su Wanue's junior from university. Later, after Du Shinshin graduated and couldn't find a job, She treated Su Wanua to meals and gave her gifts, begging for her help. Su Wanua, seeing how well-behaved and sensible her junior was, and how sweetly she called her senior with every word, relented and let her join Chin's company. Who would have thought that in the end she would have planted a time bomb for herself? But now, these things have become insignificant in Su Wanua's heart. As if deliberately showing off in the photos Shinshin posted, Qin Shituan always appeared to be a model husband. There were photos of him cutting steak for her while she looked down, of him carrying her high heels by the sea and watching the sunrise with her, and of him dressing up as a cartoon character to make her happy at the amusement park. And in the latest social media post, the two were actually taking wedding photos on the summit of Mount Shaoxiang. Shinshin, in a white dress, smiled sweetly while Qin Shituan, with a doting expression, held her and posed for photos cooperatively. Many mutual friends who learned that Qin Shituan was married commented with question marks under this set of photos. Su Wanua's hand trembled and she also liked this set of photos. Before long, Qin Shituan's angry call came through. Exen has always wanted to wear a wedding dress for me. I've already given you the title of Mrs. Qin. This wedding photo shoot is just to fulfill one of her wishes. Do you have to make such a fuss? Did you also arrange for those people in the comment section? Exen was so scared by those comments and likes that she cried. I had to comfort her for a long time before she calmed down. Are you happy now? Su Wanyu, how many times have I told you to be considerate of a pregnant woman? And you're still pushing your luck, aren't you? This will only make me detest you even more. After a barrage of accusations, Su Wanyu was left with no room to even offer a single explanation. Listening to the beep-beep sound of the phone hanging up, Su Wanyu helplessly put down her phone and continued to handle her discharge procedures. As soon as she walked out of the hospital, she saw Qin Shituan leaning against his car door. His gloomy expression made it seem like he was here to interrogate her. Su Wanyu clenched her fingers and subconsciously began to explain to him, that like was just an accidental slip of the finger, I didn't mean anything by it. She truly didn't mean anything else, only hoping that Qin Shituan and Shinshin's relationship would remain strong and that they wouldn't block her path to leaving. And Qin Shituan had indeed intended to scold her, but upon seeing her looking so alone, the words of accusation simply wouldn't come out. He grabbed Su Wanyue's wrist, opened the rear car door and pushed her in, scolding her, "Don't you check the weather before going out? You're dressed so thinly." The car's heater was on full blast, and Su Wanyue was enveloped in warmth as soon as she got in. Then she saw Shinshin sitting in the passenger seat. Shinshin had also heard what Qin Shituan had said earlier, and her brow furrowed unconsciously. But in less than a moment she smiled and greeted Su Wanyue in the back seat. "Sister Yaya, you're finally out of the hospital. I've received the safety charm. I didn't expect you to be hospitalized just to get it for me. If I hadn't recognized you from afar just now, would you have walked home by yourself?" Suwandres Mayid non comitali. She originally intended to go home quietly, get her documents and leave on her own. Since she ran into them, it wouldn't hurt to ride along. The car drove smoothly down the main road. Shinshin suddenly exclaimed, "Aya," and looking in the rearview mirror of the passenger seat, unbuttoned her collar, playfully chiding Qin Shituan. "I told you to be gentler and yet there are still marks. How annoying," looking at the large red marks on Shinshin's neck and the faint scent in the car. Su Wanyue immediately understood what they had been doing in the car just now. Qin Shituan coughed lightly in embarrassment and did not reply. During the rest of the drive, he inadvertently kept glancing at Su Wanyue in the rearview mirror to observe her reaction. But Su Wanyue continued to look out the window, revealing no emotion at all. When they arrived home, Shinshin started complaining about her sore back and legs before even getting out of the car, insisting that Qin Shituan carry her home. Qin Shituan dotingly tapped her nose and bent down to pick her up. "Fine, you're pregnant, so you're right." Su Wanyue quietly followed behind the two. Watching Qin Shituan carry Shinshin in his arms and stride home, she realized her heart had gone numb and would no longer ache. Perhaps due to the effects of the miscarriage, Su Wanyue left the dinner table after only a few bites. She returned to her room, opened her suitcase and prepared to pack lighter, intending to leave as soon as possible while Qin Shituan was away. After all, she didn't know how long she could hide her miscarriage, and she dreaded facing Qin Shituan's wrath when he found out. It would be better to leave early. At this moment, The door was suddenly pushed open from the outside by Qin Shirchuan. Qin Shirchuan immediately saw Su Wanua squatting in front of the suitcase, her face a little pale. He frowned at once, walked up, pulled Su Wanua up and pushed her onto the bed, his tone unable to hide his "the. You could have had someone pack these things. Don't you know you're pregnant and shouldn't overexert yourself?" As he spoke, he personally bent down and neatly put the clothes from the suitcase into the wardrobe, one by one. Seeing the clothes she had painstakingly put away being put back, Su Wanua stared at Qin Shirchuan with displeasure. "Qin Shirchuan, what exactly do you want from me?" Qin Shirchuan frowned tightly. "I want to ask you the same thing. You ate so little for dinner and then hid in your room without making a sound. What, are you deliberately trying to make things difficult for me and Shinshin? I've already allowed you to have this child and you can ask my assistant for anything you need. What else are you unhappy about? Forget it." Qin Shirchuan rubbed his forehead, remembering something. Exen wants to go out to sea. I've prepared a ferry. Pay attention to your attitude when we go out tomorrow, and don't keep a long face in front of Exen. Su Wanua subconsciously refused. "I'm not going." Qin Shirchuan had already reached the door and was preparing to leave. Upon hearing this, he paused, his voice forceful. "Shinshin wants you to go with her, and your spot on the ferry has already been reserved. Whether you go or not is not up to you." The next morning, 2 luxury cars stopped outside the villa. Du Shinshin enthusiastically grabbed Su Wanua, insisting on riding in the same car to the port. Qin Shirchuan asked her with a hint of helplessness and indulgence. "Shinshin, didn't you say you wanted to ride in a car alone with me? Why do you want to ride with Su Wanua now?" Du Shinshin said coquettishly, "I want to have some girl talk with Sister Yaya. You're not allowed to follow." As she spoke, Du Shinshin had already pulled Su Wanua into the car. But as soon as the car door closed, she immediately put away the smile from the corner of her mouth, and without even an extra glance at Su Wanua, she put on her eye mask and leaned back against the seat, closing her eyes to rest. Su Wanua frowned, always feeling that Du Shinshin had malicious intentions. Halfway through the car ride, Su Wanua suddenly smelled a strange fragrance, and then she felt increasingly drowsy until her eyelids became too heavy to lift. Su Wanua was woken up by a basin of cold water. She coughed heavily twice, and as soon as she opened her eyes, she saw several fierce-looking men with unfriendly expressions. "Who are you? Let me go." Su Wanua struggled in terror, but her limbs were tightly bound, and she was surrounded by desolate wilderness. "Stop struggling." A familiar voice sounded from behind her. Su Wanua looked back and saw that Du Shinshin was also tied up here just like her. However, those men were extremely respectful towards Du Shinshin, and even the ropes binding her were deliberately loosened. Su Wanua immediately understood something. "You're in on this together? Du Shinshin, what exactly are you trying to do?" Du Shinshin let out a dismissive chuckle. "Su Wanua, don't think I don't know about your pregnancy. Are you still planning to use the bastard in your belly to fight me for the man? I'll give you a chance now and let you see who is more important in Qin Shirchuan's eyes, the two of us who are pregnant at the same time." After speaking, she gave a look to the man in the lead, who immediately took out his phone and dialed Qin Shirchuan's number. "President Qin, your 2 women are in our hands. If you want to save them, come to the mountain I'll mention later alone." On the other end of the phone, Qin Shirchuan's cold and anxious voice immediately came through. "I'll be there immediately. If you dare to harm either of them, I'll make your life worse than death." While waiting for Qin Shirchuan to arrive, Su Wanua had a foul-smelling rag stuffed into her mouth. She wanted to tell Du Shinshin countless times that she had already aborted the child, but she couldn't make a sound, and her eyes were red from the stench of the dirty rag. Du Shinshin was quite pleased with her pained expression. "Su Wanua, I suddenly remembered something very interesting. Do you want to hear it? Do you remember the first child you were pregnant with? You were very happy then, but Qin Shirchuan wasn't that attentive. Do you know why? Because he once promised me that only I could have his first child in the future. That's why he ignored you and even followed my advice to put a mad dog on the road when you were going for your prenatal checkup, causing you to be attacked and miscarry." Su Wanua, who was still struggling, suddenly widened her eyes. She tried her best to digest the information she had just received, and her mind went blank for a moment. No wonder Qin Shirchuan said he had an important meeting that day and refused to accompany her to the prenatal checkup. No wonder she cried uncontrollably after losing her child, but Qin Shirchuan didn't shed a single tear. So that child, he never wanted it in the first place. At this moment, Qin Shirchuan's voice suddenly rang out from not far away. He ran over with hurried steps, his concerned gaze sweeping carefully between Du Shinshin and Su Wanua. After seeing that they were not seriously injured, he sternly shouted at the kidnappers, "I've brought all the money you asked for, now let them both go." The kidnapper smiled and negotiated with Qin Shirchuan, "Money first, then release." But when it was time to release them, the kidnapper turned and received a signal from Du Shinshin, immediately changing his tune. "No, we can only release one of them. The other will only be released when the money is fully paid. Who do you want to put down first? Hurry up and choose." What is there to choose from? Su Wanue already had an answer in her heart and closed her eyes in despair. But she heard Qin Shirchuan's voice, which allowed no room for argument. "Impossible, I'm taking both of them with me today." At the same time, a clamor erupted from all around. When she opened her eyes again, she saw that Qin Shirchuan's men had already been ambushed everywhere, and they took down the group of kidnappers by surprise. She and Du Shinshin had both been rescued at the same time. But in the next second, she watched with her own eyes as Qin Shirchuan leaped to Du Shinshin's side to untie her. "Shinshin, how are you?" Du Shinshin clutched her stomach, her expression one of great pain. "Shirchuan, I feel so unwell, my stomach hurts, will the baby be okay?" "Don't worry, I won't let anything happen to you or the baby." While Qin Shirchuan softly reassured her, he nimbly picked up Du Shinshin and stood up. He quickly ordered his subordinates to prepare the car and contact the nearest hospital. Then, with a hurried expression, he left, holding the woman in his arms. A group of subordinates were also in a frantic rush, afraid of delaying Du Shinshin's treatment and then being blamed by Qin Shirchuan. During this time, not a single person noticed Su Wanue, let alone untied her ropes or removed the rag from her mouth. After the group left in a grand procession, Su Wanue was left alone. She could only struggle to move her body to lean against a tree, and it wasn't until dark that she managed to rub through the ropes and break free from her restraints. Then, stumbling with every step and falling countless times, she finally made her way down the hillside. After descending the mountain, Su Wanue's phone had completely died and shut down. With no other option, she had to go to the police station to report the incident. Less than half an hour later, Qin Shirchuan arrived at the police station, bringing the biting wind with him. His charcoal gray suit made him appear even more distinguished and aloof. With a grim expression, he signed the form handed to him by the police officer. Then with a grim expression he took Su Wanue away, and with a grim expression he put her into the car. Then he finally couldn't hold back and exploded. "Su Wanue, I think you're doing this on purpose. You've clearly been rescued, but you still insist on putting on this act of self-inflicted suffering. Who are you trying to impress? Do you know that phone call just now almost woke up Shinshin? If she doesn't get enough rest during her pregnancy, will you take responsibility?" Hearing this, Su Wanue kept her eyes lowered and did not refute a single word. It was no longer necessary. After returning home, she immediately retrieved her identification documents and didn't want to delay any further. As she happened to walk out of the room, she found Qin Shirchuan still sitting in the living room, not resting but with a very grim expression. Su Wanue took a deep breath and handed him the divorce agreement in her hand. But before she could say anything else, she was enveloped by Qin Shirchuan's tall figure. The man grabbed her chin, his voice chillingly cold. "I just received a call saying those kidnappers have confessed who was behind them. I never imagined it would be you. Su Wanue, are you so wicked that you have to force me to choose between you and Shinshin?" Su Wanue's heart sank and she froze. She hadn't expected Du Shinshin to have such a trick up her sleeve. To directly throw the dirty water onto her, making her take the blame for Du Shinshin, the real mastermind. She immediately explained, "It wasn't me, this is clearly Du Shinshin." Before she could finish speaking, Qin Shirchuan's grip on her chin suddenly tightened as if he intended to crush it. Su Wanue trembled all over from the pain, her breathing becoming heavier. Qin Shirchuan's tone grew colder. "Even now, you're still thinking of dragging Shinshin into this. Su Wanue, you've disappointed me too much." After speaking, Qin Shirchuan forcefully pulled her and pushed her into the underground warehouse. Su Wanue was usually very afraid of the dark, let alone this enclosed environment without any sign of life. Her heart pounded and she immediately struggled to get up, frantically running towards the only light source outside the warehouse door. Qin Shituan stood coldly at the entrance and just as she was about to touch the door frame, unhesitatingly pushed her back again. Reflect on your actions here. When you learn to put aside your jealous thoughts, I'll consider letting you out. Then the door slammed shut, plunging the surroundings into darkness. Qin Shituan, let me out. You can't treat me like this. All the terrifying memories of the dark flooded back. Su Wanue frantically rushed over and pounded on the door, but there was no response from outside. Let me out, I've been framed, I didn't do those things at all. As she shouted, she frantically picked up some tool and smashed it against the door with all her might. But besides the loud echo of her pounding, there was only a deathly silence all around. Su Wanue, exhausted at some point, leaned weakly against the door trying to catch a glimpse of light. In the middle of the night, her consciousness blurred as she smelled the scent of thick smoke. Is it on fire? At the same time, a clamor erupted from outside the door. Ah, it's on fire. Brother Shituan, hurry and carry me out. Amidst a blaze of fire, Qin Shituan holding Du Shinshin had already reached the doorway, but he suddenly remembered something and put down the person in his arms. Shinshin, find a safe place outside to hide. I'll come find you right away. As he spoke, he was already striding towards the direction of the underground warehouse. But Du Shinshin screamed and collapsed to the ground, clutching her stomach. My stomach hurts so much, Shituan, will the baby be okay? Qin Shituan stopped in his tracks, immediately turned around, picked up Du Shinshin and ran to the hospital without looking back. All this commotion was heard by Su Wanue inside the warehouse. But she was choked by the thick smoke and could no longer make any sound, only weakly and repeatedly banging on the warehouse door with her hands. Her heart, however, had already fallen into an abyss of despair. Just as Su Wanue was about to lose consciousness, the door was suddenly flung open from the outside. It turned out to be the maid Zhang-Ma who had rushed over after hearing the noise. Madam, are you all right? After being helped outside, Su Wanue greedily breathed in the fresh air, her mind gradually clearing. She politely declined Zhang-Ma's suggestion to go to the hospital, instead stuffing all the cash she had on her into Zhang-Ma's hands. Zhang-Ma, take this money and pretend you never saved me today. After speaking, Su Wanue turned and hailed a taxi by the roadside. Driver, please take me to the airport. Behind her, the villa blazed with fire. Su Wanue gazed at the scenery ahead, her vision blurring with tears. Goodbye forever, this failed 8-year marriage in Qin Shituan. After Qin Shituan carried Du Shinshin away from the villa, he immediately got into the car and ran several red lights to take her to the hospital. Because he was worried about Du Shinshin's unborn child the entire time, he didn't notice the triumphant smile in the corner of her eyes. While waiting for Du Shinshin's examination, Qin Shituan finally had time to take out his phone. He wanted to call and ask about Su Wanue's situation, wondering if she had already escaped the fire. After all, the fire was so big that firefighters must have arrived quickly. Even at worst, with Su Wanue's little tricks, she wouldn't really trap herself to death inside. But for some reason he really wanted to call Su Wanue to confirm if she was truly safe. As he took out his phone, a crumpled piece of paper also fell out from him. After Su Wanue handed him this paper at the time before she could say anything, he locked her in the underground warehouse. Now when Qin Shituan opened it, the contents of the paper made his eyes widen in shock. It was a divorce agreement. After 8 years of marriage, Su Wanue had argued with him countless times, and at their worst they hadn't spoken for an entire month. But she never once mentioned divorce. Qin Shituan was precisely counting on her absolute inability to leave him, which is why he became increasingly reckless. But now she actually wanted to divorce him? Qin Shituan suppressed the urge to tear the paper to shreds and immediately wanted to find Su Wanue to ask for a reason. At this moment, Du Shinshin was helped out of the examination room. What's wrong, Brother Shituan? Qin Shituan stopped, frowned and handed her the paper. This is what Su Wanue gave me tonight. Du Shinshin took it with confusion and looked at it, and the contents inside immediately made her eyes light up with excitement. But she quickly hid her emotions and instead began to cling to Qin Shituan's arm, fanning the flames. How could this happen? Brother Shituan, you've provided for Su Wanue for so many years, and it's one thing that she doesn't appreciate it, but she actually took the initiative to propose divorce. If you ask me, she probably just can't stand me, so she deliberately used these tactics to try and force me away. How about you just agree to the divorce directly, and let her know we're not so easily manipulated? What do you think? These words seemed to suddenly awaken Qin Shirchuan. His thoughts gradually calmed down and he relaxed. Yes, Su Wanue could even come up with a kidnapping scheme to force him to choose, so her Tudong Tirihun must be another trick of hers. What a clever scheme. However, it's not to the point of actually agreeing to a divorce, so let's leave her be for a couple of days. Forget it, I won't bother with her anymore, Qin Shirchuan said, putting his arm around Du Xinshin's shoulder and asking gently, Shinshin, how were your test results just now? Is the baby doing okay? Du Xinshin nestled in his arms, acting spoiled and aggrieved. The doctor said I had contractions due to shock, so I need to be taken good care of and stay in the hospital for a week of observation. Brother Shirchuan, will you stay with me for this week? Okay. Qin Shirchuan dotingly ruffled her hair and personally escorted her back to the VIP room he had long booked for Du Xinshin. After it got dark, Qin Shirchuan peeled an apple while asking Du Xinshin for her opinion. Shinshin, I need to go home for a bit after you fall asleep to investigate the cause of the fire and handle some follow-up matters. Hearing that Qin Shirchuan was going to investigate the fire himself, Du Xinshin frowned. She grabbed Qin Shirchuan's hand and shook her head, acting spoiled. No, you promised to stay here with me all week. You can't go back on your word. Qin Shirchuan could only sigh helplessly. All right then. After Du Xinshin fell asleep, he quietly left the room and called his assistant. Did you finish handling the fire extinguishing matter I assigned you earlier? I can't go over there myself, so you contact the designer to rebuild the villa. The expenses can be deducted directly from my card. Understood, Mr. Qin. Oh, and also arrange for Su Wanue to move into my villa in the southern suburbs. She's pregnant now, so try to fulfill any request she has. The assistant was silent for 2 seconds, then asked with confusion, Mr. Qin, but I haven't been able to reach Madam. Isn't she with you? Qin Shirchuan didn't hear this sentence. Because at the same moment Du Xinshin woke up. As soon as he heard the noise from the ward, he immediately hung up the phone and went to comfort Du Xinshin. For the next few days, Qin Shirchuan truly stayed by Du Xinshin's side without leaving. She even called Ma to the hospital to take care of Du Xinshin, fearing that the hospital food wouldn't suit her taste. Du Xinshin was quite pleased and began to compare herself to Su Wanue, both openly and subtly in front of Ma. Ma, if you weren't sent to take care of my meals, you'd still be by Su Wanue's side, serving her closely. But she's not as easy to please as I am, is she? Hey, Ma, haven't you finished altering the dress I asked you to take and change a couple of days ago? Although I'm not as picky as Su Wanue, you can't neglect your duties. These past few days, Brother Shirchuan has been by my side constantly. How is Su Wanue doing? Is she furious, yelling and smashing things? Because Su Wanue had given Ma a large sum of money before leaving, instructing her not to reveal her whereabouts. So whenever Du Xinshin said these things, Ma wished she could disappear into the ground, thinking only of how to quickly get through the conversation. At the same time, she couldn't help but feel contempt for Qin Shirchuan. Why would he reject a good woman like his wife and instead seek out a woman so full of schemes and jealousy? Meanwhile, Qin Shirchuan was also starting to find Du Xinshin's clingy personality unbearable. He remembered that the first time Su Wanue was pregnant, although she also cherished the child in her womb and wanted him by her side to await the baby's arrival together. But after he refused her requests a few times, citing being busy with company matters and unable to spare the time, Su Wanue truly stopped bothering him. Even when she had a miscarriage and was lying in the hospital heartbroken and most in need of care, she wasn't as clingy as Du Xinshin. Come to think of it, although he hadn't shortchanged Su Wanue financially over the years. Emotionally, however, he seemed to have truly neglected Su Wanue a bit too much. How long had it been since Su Wanue had cried in front of him, thrown a tantrum at him or shown him dependence? Deep down, was she, like Du Xinshin, a spoiled and willful little girl who needed companionship? Thinking of this, Qin Shirchuan himself dismissed the absurd idea. If Su Wanue were truly that simple, how could she have come up with the vicious plan of kidnapping to force him to choose between her and Du Xinshin? Besides, marrying Su Wanue back then was not his wish, and Su Wanue was not the wife he had envisioned. He has already given Su Wanue a lot, And now he is just doing what he likes, so why should he consider Su Wanua's feelings? Qin Shichuan rubbed his forehead and shook his head, quickening his pace towards Du Shinshin's ward. At this moment he happened to overhear a conversation among several nurses. President Qin really dotes on Miss Du. Not only does the CEO with a net worth of tens of billions condescend to accommodate her preferences, but the other day Miss Du casually mentioned wanting to see fireworks, and President Qin booked the entire city's fireworks for her to enjoy to her heart's content. Everyone in the hospital knows that Miss Du is the person Mr. Qin cherishes most, and she's also carrying his child. Naturally, she's his top priority. But one of the nurses sneered, He's just a cheating man putting on a show. Don't you guys know Mr. Qin is married? He's neglecting his pregnant wife to personally take care of his mistress's child. How disgusting. Ah? Really? A group of nurses covered their mouths in disbelief, whispering amongst themselves. Suddenly they felt a low pressure emanating from beside them. Looking up, they saw Qin Shichuan standing before them with a grim expression. The nurses immediately lowered their heads and dispersed, pretending to be busy. Qin Shichuan, who had overheard the conversation, was still furious. He punched the wall hard, but Su Wanua's face involuntarily appeared in his mind. And also the child in Su Wanua's womb. In fact, when he was doting on Du Shinshin, he also wanted to know how Su Wanua was doing with her pregnancy. But thinking that he was still giving Su Wanua the cold shoulder, he was unwilling to lower his pride. At this moment he remembered that Su Wanua had stayed in the hospital for several days to recover after fainting on Mount Fo last time, and these should all be recorded in her file. Qin Shichuan walked to the obstetrics and gynecology department and knocked on the door of the chief physician. Get me Su Wanua's prenatal checkup records. The doctor had some impression of the name Su Wanua. After retrieving her file from the computer, she immediately remembered, Oh, Su Wanua, isn't that the girl who came for an abortion alone? I heard the child's father is also dead. How pitiful. Who are you to her? What did you say? Qin Shichuan thought he had misheard. He stepped forward, grabbed the doctor by the collar and asked forcefully, Who did you say had a miscarriage? The doctor, intimidated by Qin Shichuan's powerful aura, stammered in response. It's just that Su Wanua had a miscarriage and I personally performed the surgery on her. As he spoke, he turned the computer screen towards Qin Shichuan. Look, it's all clearly written here. Qin Shichuan's eyes widened. When he saw the signed abortion consent form from Su Wanua on the screen, his mind went blank for a moment. No wonder Su Wanua had been hospitalized silently for so long during that period. No wonder Su Wanua's face was so pale on the day she was discharged. She actually had an abortion behind his back. How dare she? Qin Shichuan angrily let go of the doctor and took out his phone to directly contact his assistant. Where is Su Wanua? Have her come to the hospital to see me immediately. The assistant hesitated after hearing this and replied, President Qin, as I told you last time, we haven't been able to contact Madam since the fire. We have no idea where she went. Qin Shichuan's eyes widened abruptly. He immediately hung up the phone, found Su Wanua's number and dialed it. But just as his assistant had said, no one answered the call for a long time, until it automatically disconnected. Qin Shichuan's heart suddenly panicked. The assistant said he hadn't seen Su Wanua since the fire, but the house had already burned down. Where could Su Wanua have gone? Could it be that she never escaped? Qin Shichuan dared not think further. He rushed out the door and immediately drove to the villa site that had been destroyed by the fire. The place had already been reduced to ashes, and a light rain began to fall sporadically from the sky. Qin Shichuan walked over step by step, and his assistant, who followed closely behind, quickly stepped forward to hold an umbrella for him. Mr. Qin, I've already contacted the police, but the surveillance in this area was coincidentally broken that day, and we can't find any trace of Madam. Also, the assistant's voice grew softer and softer, and Qin Shichuan asked with a trembling voice, What else? Also, the police said the fire that day was too big, and it's highly likely that Madam did not escape from the warehouse. She should have been burned to ashes. They asked you to prepare yourself mentally in advance. Shut up. Qin Shichuan suddenly roared, swatting away the umbrella the assistant held over his head, and yelled at the assistant uncontrollably, She can't be dead. Who gave you permission to curse Su Wanua here? Get out. Don't appear before me until you find out where Su Wanua is. The assistant, frightened by his frenzied state, had no choice but to comply with his demand and quickly left the scene. After the assistant left, looking at the ruins before him, Qin Shirchuan collapsed to the ground as if all his strength had been drained. He clenched his fists and numbly beat the ground repeatedly. In fact, after learning of Su Wanue's disappearance, he had already considered this worst-case scenario. But when these words were spoken by someone else, he could no longer suppress his emotions and face such an outcome. Qin Shirchuan clutched his chest, an inexpressible emptiness and pain pouring out from within. How could Su Wanue be dead? She was such a vibrant person. He suddenly remembered the first time he met Su Wanue. Qin's mother said that Su Wanue's parents had died in an accident, and the Su Corporation was on the verge of collapse. To save the Su Corporation, Su Wanue had to marry into the Qin family. And he, Qin Shirchuan, didn't even have the right to refuse. Because of the complicated favors from the previous generation, he was forced to marry this girl who still looked like a child. On their wedding night, Qin Shirchuan got drunk and made 3 rules with Su Wanue. He said he would protect the Su family and ensure Su Wanue had no worries about food and drink, but Su Wanue shouldn't expect to trap him in this absurd marriage. After they got married, he sought out many women, and on several occasions he wasn't careful enough, leaving Su Wanue to discover clues. That period was the most vibrant time for Su Wanue. She would argue with him, smash things wantonly at home, and then cry to Qin's mother. Despite her making a fuss, Qin Shirchuan didn't feel disgusted. On the contrary, he found this kind of Su Wanue to be real and interesting. But in the end, he hurt Su Wanue so much that she no longer cried or made a scene. It's even unknown if she's still alive now. The rain in the sky grew heavier and heavier. Rainwater relentlessly pounded down on Qin Shirchuan, and he wiped his face, unable to distinguish whether the moisture on his face was rain or tears. Shirchuan, brother Shirchuan. Du Shinshin's voice rang out from not far away. She had rushed here as soon as she received the news. Du Shinshin was terrified by Qin Shirchuan's dejected appearance. She quickly opened her umbrella and ran to his side, whispering words of comfort in his ear. Brother Shirchuan, I know everything, don't be sad. Even if Su Wanue is dead, I'm still here to accompany you. When he heard the word, dead, from her mouth, Qin Shirchuan's spine stiffened for a moment. But Du Shinshin didn't notice his abnormality and continued to say, actually, it's not a bad thing if Su Wanue is dead. At least your marriage can be dissolved and she can't pester you anymore. I know what you hated most was your family forcing you into an arranged marriage back then, but now it's good. Now that she's dead, we can finally get married and be together openly. Qin Shirchuan suddenly grabé du 500 triste. His expression was blank, but his eyes flashed with a fierce, cold light. Du Shinshin had never seen him look so terrifying and flinched, her whole body trembling. Then she heard Qin Shirchuan's cold voice, devoid of any emotion. I said Su Wanue isn't dead, she's just missing. Du Shinshin, if I hear you say one more bad thing about my wife, I won't let you off easily. After speaking, he shoved Du Shinshin away and mustered the strength to stand up from the ground. But perhaps it was from standing in the rain for too long, or perhaps his emotions had fluctuated too much. Qin Shirchuan felt his footing was unsteady. He hadn't taken 2 steps before his vision went black and he collapsed to the ground. When Qin Shirchuan opened his eyes again, he found himself lying in bed. He had been brought to his villa in the southern suburbs. He rubbed his forehead. As soon as he sat up in bed, the butler hurried over. Mr. Qin, you're finally awake. Hurry downstairs and take a look. The Su family heard the news of Madame's disappearance and rushed over. They're making a scene downstairs. The Su family? Qin Shirchuan frowned slightly and quickly changed his clothes before heading to the living room on the first floor. The living room was already crowded with people. Su Wanue's eldest aunt, eldest uncle, and her few good-for-nothing younger brothers and sisters were all gathered there. As soon as they saw Qin Shirchuan, they lunged at him like hungry wolves spotting meat, wiping away tears that weren't there. Qin Shirchuan, you bastard. How could our Ye be so unlucky? Such a good child married you only to lose her life in the end.